Welcome to the Healers Café, the number one show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart to heart conversations about their day to day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. Welcome to the Healers Cafe. And today I have with me Stacy Scarcella. And for more than 2 decades, Stacy has built a career defined by vision, resilience, and reinvention. So basically, a former corporate executive turned into a creative entrepreneur. And I'll have Stacy explain a little bit more what she was doing, but basically climbing the ranks in fashion, advertising, and technology, working with like Armani, Macy's, Tubboat, TJ companies, and Boss. And then something changed, and I wanted you to just take it from there and explain your this transformation, and also how the condition that you didn't talk about, Marfan Syndrome, came to your attention, and did it impact you? Did anything change because of it, or were you just always meant to be Stacy?
I love it. Well, thank you so much for introducing me. It's such a pleasure to be here and talk with you today. Yes, I have, had a very amazing career and it's still going and it's ever changing and I'm always pivoting and moving and shifting. I was in corporate because that's what you do. You go to college and then you get a job and you follow the rules. And I was a great rule follower. And I had incredible mentors and teachers that really guided me into, getting into corporate. And after 13 years of, really working hard at different companies that, some of the ones that you mentioned, I realized that I wasn't truly fulfilled. And what does that mean? I mean, I think when you get to a place of, you know, in your career where you think, oh, I can go to the next level, but every single level I went to, I wasn't filling that void. And I had some traumatic experiences in my personal life that helped me lead to that for sure. But that was when I decided to leave corporate and move my family across the country and start my own company. And I had to learn everything from scratch. I did not know the first thing about opening a company. And so
Well,
everything was self-taught, reaching out to people I knew. And now I've been running my company. I'm in my 11th year, and it's been really a fun, incredible journey.
and so what is it you do now, and what is making it more creative, or what is it that gives you that fulfillment at this point?
Absolutely. So I am a producer, and that's really been my overarching title through all of my roles and all of my positions. I produce. I take a creative idea and I make it come to life in the simplest explanation of the word. Producers tend to be a title. Production, in itself is ambiguous. There are so many different types of producers. I specifically work in advertising, so I take campaign briefs and RFPs and I turn them into a physical shoot or strategy to actually bring an idea to life. And so my company, Plaid Pony Productions, we take in RFPs and we look at the bid itself. We create the bid, and most of our projects are triple bids. And when we win the project, we work closely with the director and the photographers to execute the concept from, paper to the real shoot. And then we edit and help with the post and deliver. And so some of the projects are we handle everything from soup to nuts. Sometimes we just shoot the content and we do a data dump of files and the client handles everything in-house. Or we are part of the pre-pro or just the post. And so there's all different ways I've been brought into projects over the years. We also have a side of the business that does experiential events, and that's basically a commercial in real life. So that's the way I describe it. So I work with brands to bring a concept to life, whether it be a pop-up shop or an experience or an event. But the business itself is a B2B business.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. So so both of them, you're doing something creative,
Mhm.
but what is it that made you feel better about doing it on your own and being an entrepreneur without knowing anything about that?
Great question. When I worked at corporate, I had to work on the projects I was assigned.
Mhm,
And there wasn't a lot of diversity in the projects. I would just be working on tech or I would just be working on fashion. And
mhm,
part of what I love about advertising is it is so expansive. You could
mhm,
be working on something with beauty and the next day telecommunications. And so
mhm,
when I built the company, I wanted to make sure that I had as much freedom as
mhm,
possible. So freedom is definitely the theme of what gave
mhm,
me the confidence to make that jump. And
mhm,
when
mhm,
I started, I had a lot of directors come to me and photographers, and
mhm,
they wanted me to represent them. But part of me having freedom was not being tied to one concept. And so
mhm,
I flipped the script a little because that's not the traditional way production companies are set up. You are usually paired with a creative. And we source unsigned and independent creators for all of our
mhm,
projects. And it gives me that flexibility and freedom. And so when I left corporate, it was a box, and I wanted to open the box and have it as wide as possible. And so that's what's been so fulfilling over the last decade is I am never bored. I am working on fashion one day, the next day a tech product that hasn't launched yet.
mhm,
And then the day after that, I'm working on some fashion brand or I'm working on a health product.
mhm,
It is so fun because every day is a different type of
mhm,
project.
mhm. So, I mean, the parallel, like, the creative, I think you had in both, but in really, it's the freedom
It's freedom of
to
creativity and
of creativity. Yeah. So
true.
I'm just curious because, according to your bio, you were diagnosed with Marfan, which, if you read the diagnosis, it's pretty grim and, and there's a lot of things that are, that if you absolutely were mortified by it, you would, see yourself at some point having a heart issue, absolutely no children, and all kinds of, physical disadvantages, let's call it that way. That is not your story. So, what was your attitude towards, shifting, wanting to be creative, looking for freedom during a time where, a lot of people would be in panic and in fear with their diagnosis? What do you see? Like, we become who we are by the challenges we face and the things that we learn from, at least on some level, I believe. So what can you share, to an audience that might be challenged with some diagnosis where they're, feeling quite stuck, uh, definitely uncreative about it. And yeah, so what happened with you? What did you do, or
An
who were
interesting,
you?
it's an interesting journey because it was for sure a shock when you're 25 years old and you're going in for support because I had struggled with so many different types of ailments over the years and I was a college athlete. I
Mhm,
was very active and the last thing I ever thought was wrong would be a heart condition
mhm,
and everything else that comes with Marfan syndrome. It's not just the heart that it affects everything. I'm
mhm.
legally blind in my right eye, and
Wow.
I had no idea that was tied back to the same syndrome that
Mhm.
affected my back and my knees and my wrists and my rib cage. I mean, so many different things. And when I was diagnosed, I was only 25, and it was a fairly new, discovered um, syndrome. I mean, it's not mainstream to this day. Many caretakers and providers and doctors don't even, they have to go back and Google it. It's just not something that is as mainstream as some other conditions. And when I found out, the doctor that was telling me, she really didn't have amazing bedside manner. And she was just like, well, you can't have kids. You may live till you're 40. Good luck. And
Wow.
it was pretty intense. And I was by myself because I didn't know I would be receiving this news. And so I left pretty shell shocked. And, you know, it was the beginning of a lot of, self work to say, okay, I have two choices here. I can dwell in my diagnosis that was told to me by someone I barely know, or I can do my research and continue to live my life.
Mhm.
Obviously, there were some things that needed to change immediately, and that was, how I worked out, how I, stayed physical. Um, and that was all just part of like a checklist of do's and don'ts.
Mhm.
Everything outside of that I had to figure out myself. And
Mhm.
this was not during, I didn't have a great, AI partner with me. I had to, read books and research and call different doctors to figure out, okay, well, can I have kids? And, a lot of them said no, because
Mhm.
the second trimester is when your aorta heart really expands, and even before then, and depending on like your body. And so if I was to dilate that part of my heart, I would have a massive heart attack. And
Mhm.
so I did not think I could have kids. And I was dating my now husband, and he was so incredibly supportive. And I think that is a huge part of why the
Mhm.
ride itself was easier, because of my partner.
Mhm.
And we went to so many different doctors together. We weren't engaged. We were not family planning, but he knew I needed that to move forward because I needed information.
Mhm.
And I kind of accepted the fact that, okay, I won't have kids. That's okay. That's not in my cards. So I got to that place, and 5 years later, or 2 years later, we were married. We actually got married. And then we started living our lives together. We traveled all over the world. We were like, this is amazing. I mean, okay, we might not have kids, but we're going to have all of these memories. And we weren't sure if we wanted to adopt or anything in the future. We were still so young. Um, but then I got pregnant when I was 30. Um, and it was a surprise. And I
Mhm.
went to the doctor and I said, how do I have to make a really hard decision today? And I had been keeping up with my cardio appointments, and um, they were like, your heart looks amazing. I think we should try to get you through this pregnancy. And
Mhm.
that was a
Mhm.
shock, right? Like I did not think
Right.
I'd be able to carry my own baby, or even have a child. And so I was high risk, even at, 30 years old, I was a high risk, I saw the doctor 1 to 2 days a week. So there were a lot of appointments, a lot of testing, and I made it through the pregnancy. And it was such a success that I thank the universe around me. I mean, who knew that it was possible? But it's
Mhm.
because I truly did. Um, I just said, why not? And that's kind of been
Mhm.
my motto over the years.
Mhm.
Why not? So I'm going to pause there because I know you have
Right.
more questions.
No, no, I'm listening very attentively. But so why not? But before the why not, you
Yes.
were you were really doing an information search
Yes.
and as unbiased as possible. In other words, anything to give you more insight. And your focus, if I'm getting this right, was self-care. How do I manage this, the best so I can have the best life possible?
Well, and I think that's what's so incredibly important when you receive any health news that may not be positive.
Mhm.
You have to take a deep breath and
Mhm.
say, okay, well, the sun will come up tomorrow. I'm still alive. What can I do with my time?
Mhm.
And be an advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
That is the biggest thing that I have seen throughout my years, even with other friends that have had very hard, diagnosis, cancer, um, MS, like different types of ailments. And you really do have to do your own research. I mean, the doctors they're only going to share so much information because they do not have the time to spend
Mhm.
with you, and there are thousands of other, all of the other people that need help.
Mhm.
And so just having that information and in front of you, that information in front of you gives you the tools you need to decide what to do next. What is your next step? I mean, and this is something I tell my kids and I live by. How can I focus on right now and 1 minute forward? That's
Mhm.
it. That's all you
Mhm.
can do when you're
Yeah.
really stuck in confusion or, or just going through sadness because you're grieving a side of your life that is gone, right? Because now you have this new information and you have something that you have to deal with. And I think that's really powerful to
Mhm.
just say, okay, what can I do right now? Me. That's it.
What would your life be like if you were pain free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
Mhm.
Nobody else included. Um, how do I move the needle? How do I move forward? Because you have two choices. You can stay where you are, or you take the step forward into whatever direction you're going, but you at least move.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that is the key. It made me think back a little bit to so I used to be very, very skinny, which has changed over the years. But my hips were very narrow. And at the time, I was in Montreal, and I went to an obstetrician, and they said, "Oh no, no, you are going to need a cesarean. There's no way that a baby can get through," because I was pregnant and get through hips like that. So I didn't give up. I went because I thought, like, this is ridiculous. Have they never gone to Japan or China or like any other country? I just thought sure, I'm skinny, but I'm not that skinny. It's like there's something wrong here. So I went to 8 different people, and I basically got the same one opinion. And that kind of woke me up. It's like, gee, it's like fashion. If it's miniskirt time and you ask what to wear, they'll say a miniskirt. But when it's just above the knees or just below the knees, that's what you're going to be told to wear, right? And I saw sort of medical procedures and advice in the similar way, right? Because it wasn't the time, it was the fashion to have cesareans anyways, though I didn't want one. And I didn't feel like a natural body. needed to do that, that's an emergency measure, right? So of course I had a home, birth, I had vaginal, everything was fine. And I got a midwife. I mean, a lot of decisions were made because of the small-mindedness or the fashion at the time, right? So I shifted just like when you're saying later, you went to another doctor many years later, and they're looking at a new reality is like, wait a minute, this heart is looking really good. Why don't we try? And it's like it changes, right? Like
Totally does. And I had
people
two
say,
babies. I had another one. I mean,
right.
I'm blessed with two beautiful sons.
Mm,
And yes, the second pregnancy was hard, and it was a reason we we're like, okay, we tested,
it
we're not
was
going to
good.
do this any further. We definitely had a very stressful pregnancy, and both of us are lucky to be alive, my son and myself. But we made it, right? And it's also knowing when to cut your losses, right?
Right,
You might be like, okay, I'm going to go research and find out what I need to do, but also give yourself grace to accept that you might not be the exact same as the person sitting next to you, right? Because you
right,
have this different
exactly.
type of body that's diagnosed the way
Mm,
it's diagnosed. And
mm,
um and I love your story because I think that's it. If when there's a will, there's a way, right?
mm,
And when I first found out, I was a bit, I worked out every day. I was very active. I played college basketball. So I
mhm,
wanted to continue staying active, and I didn't know what else to do. And there was a cardio dance class that was being offered at my
mm,
gym. And I always thought those were the
mm,
people that just they're not athletes, right? They're just like in there just dancing around, the little aerobics movement. And I took my first Zumba class, and this was in 2006. So it wasn't like
mhm.
a big,
Yeah, yeah.
it wasn't really a big deal yet. Yeah. And I loved it. And I
Mhm,
was able to keep my heart rate up at a stable because my workouts had to change, right? I couldn't do HIIT classes. I couldn't do high-low intervals like before. No more burpees, no more
mhm,
hard, intense workouts. But that doesn't mean I can't get my heart rate up and keep it up for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, however long. And so I started my Zumba, and I went and decided to get certified. I dove in at full head first. I'm 6'3". I do not dance. I was not a dancer. And I said, why not? And I went and got certified to teach Zumba classes
Right.
because I loved it so much. And I
Mhm,
did that for, gosh, 5 or 6 years until I was pregnant. And so I stopped teaching, but I kept going to classes
mhm.
all the way through. And just this morning, I went to a Zumba class. So I still dance and I still love it. It's such a great way to move your body and keep your heart rate up. But I would have never, ever, ever fallen into that class and continued
Right.
that incredible, weird journey of, hey, I was a Zumba instructor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a whole culture on, amongst itself. And it was so fun. And it just has brought so much joy to my life that
Mhm, mhm,
if I had never, and that's the other thing, it's like your path is
mhm.
your path. And so
Right.
when you have these bumps in the road with your health, look at it as an opportunity to explore something and I know that's hard when you're going through really, really tough news.
Mhm.
Um, but it's you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you get opportunities that, or you get to see them as opportunities eventually. But you
Eventually,
know,
yes. In the moment, it can be really, it's
it's
like,
like Zumba, oh my God, I'm never gonna do that, and then
exactly.
boom, right? Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, no, it's I can I mean, I think of all the stories I've heard, it really is like that. The key is to sort of stay in the moment and take the next step. Don't get stuck, uh, because the moment is the past, the moment it happens, right? And if you're stuck more in the past about what it could mean, if you're doing the coulds and the shoulds and the woulds, you're not actually actively moving the very next step, right? And I think that's it's very important to do, you know.
Well, and
Uh,
I think it continues to change, right? Like
yeah,
after I had children, my hips, because of my condition,
right,
never pulled back in. And so
right.
I had massive, I have major SI issues and my
Mhm,
hips pop like you wouldn't believe. I mean, fascinating how your body can change and shift, but with this syndrome I have,
mhm,
I have this extra level of
mhm.
discomfort that because I
Understand.
do natural childbirths.
Mhm,
So I had to revisit, right? Okay,
mhm,
what do I do now? And so I got into yoga,
mhm, mhm,
bodies, and I really started to build my pelvic floor and really try to figure out, okay, this is what my body's doing.
mhm,
Now what do I do? Okay, I might not be able to run anymore like I used to
mhm.
because I used to love running. And it just, things change, especially as you get older. And I think that has been fascinating. Again, another pivot.
Mhm.
And I now have this incredible yoga community that I'm part of. I have a yoga event coming up on Monday. I love putting together events for other women and people that may be struggling as well with, okay, what do I do now?
Mhm.
And it can feel very frustrating when you think you've found a solution to a health situation and then something else goes out, right? Like, oh, now
Mhm.
your ankle is hurt or your shoulder and with Marfan syndrome, it affects ligaments and
Right.
tissues.
Yeah.
So guess what? Your whole entire body is full of ligaments and tissues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and because of my eyesight, being legally blind in my right eye, as I'm getting older and I'm losing my eyesight in my left eye, it's not great. But it just makes me enjoy the moments even more to say, okay, well, right now I can see. So
Right.
I'm going to do as much as I can. And I value, I mean, gratitude. I mean, I know that's something everybody's talking about, right? Have a gratitude journal. Write down all the things you're thankful for.
Mhm.
But it is helpful, right? To
Yeah.
focus on what you do have than what you've lost.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it changes your inner dynamic and how you perceive things in the end, right? Yeah, and that's interesting. So, one thing we didn't talk about, I mean, there's many things we haven't talked about, but I'm trying to see where it was that you mentioned it. But you do work for mental health advocacy.
Yes.
Do you want to? We have like a few minutes left, but I didn't want to not talk about that. So if you could just share a little bit of what you do there.
Absolutely. When I was 33 and my son was barely 2 months old, not even, I think he was 5 weeks old actually, my best friend committed suicide.
Uh,
And she was like a sister to me. And so not only was I going through, I postpartum and I had this newborn and I had a 2-year old. It was a really hard time. And so
yeah.
I was suffering just as much as some other, obviously family and friends around the situation. It was a very difficult time. But through that, I realized it wasn't isolated. There are so many people out there that are dealing with mental health issues.
Mm,
And so it was an eye-opening experience. And that was also the time that gave me the momentum I needed to leave corporate and start my own company
mhm,
because I realized how short life was, whether you were, however your life ends, it's short.
mhm,
We never get enough time. And
yeah,
so I wanted to do something and get out there. And then over the years, I have really seen in the adolescent space, I have substituted in the schools and I work really closely with middle schoolers and I have an internship at the high school in our local community. And I work with kids on, positivity and how to find their superpowers and how to really tap into what makes them special because life is hard and the real world is not kind. And these kids are already struggling in school with everything going on with social media and technology and
Mm,
just the speed of
mhm.
how we ingest information, all of that is just it's a lot. And
Right.
so if somebody's already struggling with confidence issues or self-worth or just depression, or you have some type of anxiety or stress, and those labels that are just slapped on people, they're being overlooked, right? Because they're like, oh, everybody has anxiety. Well, yeah, maybe, but why? Let's go back to the root
Mhm.
cause and start to figure out solutions rather than just band-aid the problem with medicine or, oh, they have a diagnosis. And that has become a huge part of why I public speak and why
Mhm.
I help even individuals and a full adults,
Yeah.
50-year-olds that are stuck in a career and they're unhappy. I was directly affected by someone
Mhm.
that I care deeply
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
that took her own life. And she
Yeah.
had everything on paper, right? And when
Right.
you see how mental health can be so private, it's
Mhm.
something we should talk about more. And
Yeah.
it's a very hard topic to address and discuss, but I definitely that's really what kickstarted my mission and why I continue
Mhm.
to be so much involved and about positivity and looking for the possibilities and why not?
Mhm.
Because otherwise you can get stuck. And my kids are in middle school right now and they are going through it. Middle school is not easy.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh,
it's really something that's near and dear to my heart.
mhm. Well, yeah, I think it's I live in Canada and we we have very limited solutions for people the way I see it. I mean, one of the solutions is I don't know if you've heard of this, MAIDS,
Mhm.
medically assisted suicide. And, it's the third business, whatever you call it, in Canada, because they also do organ harvesting when people say yes. And, you can be depressed because you can't pay your rent.
Mhm.
That is not a reason to get that type of assistance. So I know there's now a lot of advocacy. They're trying, but we have a lot of censorship here in Canada, so you can't really say things against the powers that be. So I take opportunities and little podcasts to share this so that people become aware of this because, I mean, you don't even have to tell your parents. They don't have to even tell your parents.
Well, and
If
I
you're,
think adolescent suicide for sure it's such, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, when I grew up, I don't even know if I knew about what that was. And so, and that's part of the information overload that kids these days are just able to access anything.
yeah,
And it can be really scary. And my solution is direct, like I picture myself as a center of a web and who can I touch, right? Who are the people closest to me? And then hoping that they spread the information. And it does start with a podcast, or it
mhm,
starts with a
mhm,
conversation or a phone
yeah,
call or
yeah,
a yoga event and or
exactly.
nights
Yeah,
and just talking about it and being okay with
mhm,
talking about really difficult things,
yeah,
um, because you never know who you're going to talk to who may have more power to make
exactly,
bigger changes.
exactly. Well, that's our time together, but I think we covered quite a lot, and thank you so much for
Thank you for
sharing
having me.
your experience and knowledge.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you for having me.
So, thoughts with the interview with Stacy Scarcella. My first thought is really for practitioners, people in practice, to just realize bedside manners. You know, if you go tell a person that they have syndrome, whatever it is, and make it sound like doom and gloom, if you don't have a personality like this person here, you would go downhill really quickly. I mean, maybe that's the thing, the tipping point that makes you go uphill. It's possible too, but just to be aware of the impact that a diagnosis can have. And sometimes, when it's not as well known as this one is not, the thing is that when people look it up on, Google or whatever, they're not finding different information, right? There isn't enough to show that there's alternative things, that there's attitudes that can change it, that yes, you can have a child, but you have to look after yourself, a lot of self-care and a lot of heart care. Uh, you know, so there really isn't all the information out there. It's really, these are the symptoms, this is the diagnosis, and boy, it's doom and gloom, and you will die by the age of 45 pretty well. That's what they say. So it's, just be aware that even though we have now Chat GPT and God knows who's feeding that information, and we have Croc, and I don't know where all the information's gathered. Some like they know more, but others just repeat the same stuff. So yeah, so just be aware of your bedside manner and the impact of sharing something significant with your patient. If you're a doctor or naturopathic doctor, it's really, really important. And even as a Bowen practitioner, look up these things. If you're not going to say anything, because you're not, the main thing you're doing, you're not diagnosing, that's not within the scope, but your attitude matters. So that's my takeaway from this. I think the other side was well expressed, so that's just a thought I had. Thank you for joining us at the Healers Cafe. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on, as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.